On the honeymoon, it's a high-class steak. When we get back home, it's hamburger patties. Beds, and we're gonna be in this little room and blah, blah, blah. No. You got a path where everybody walks, and you're just like, okay, choose a spot. Okay, here you go.
I spent one night out in a tent under the stars, and it was horrifying. I had a raccoon trying to dig through the tent.
But I had no idea it was gonna be set up that way. We lasted like a half an hour there before we both knew that this is not gonna work.
Hey guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Wednesday, August 11th. I hope you guys are having a really good day. We've got an update on the Duggars, and we're gonna go to the sister wives, and I'm not quite sure about the third video today, but I know for sure those are the two topics we're covering. And right now we are going to dive into some stuff related to Jim Bob and Michelle and what they are telling people about Josh's arrest and everything related to it. All right, so buckle up, because yesterday I talked about the prosecutors basically blasting him, calling him desperate, and saying that they aren't withholding evidence, and that everything with the investigation was pretty extensive, and they had even provided the search warrant, which is going to play a relevant role in this video, because we're going to talk about why the excuse that Josh Duggar has given to his parents as to why he's innocent doesn't necessarily hold weight. Very early on, when Josh was arrested, there was conflicting stories that were coming out of the big house. Now, Jim Bob had, to some people, told them that there was a raid by Department of Homeland Security, and then to other people he said there was not a raid, and it just depended on who you are, and we've covered that extensively. Now, information from a source connected to the Duggars tells me that Jim Bob told someone that Josh's arrest was all a big misunderstanding and they got the wrong person. There was no denial that content was found at Josh's motor car lot. There was not a denial that the feds may have found anything that was horrible on his computers, but it was not Josh. And I told you about this a couple months ago, but I got more details about how it went down. So apparently Jim Bob Duggar is telling people, or told people, that Josh Duggar hired this guy who he told his dad is a ex-con. And according to Josh, this guy had just gotten out of prison, and Josh had made the choice to give him a chance, which Jim Bob says was a big mistake, because apparently the ex-con was using Josh's computer to download this stuff when Josh was not around. Apparently the ex-con is at the motor car lot. He is apparently using Josh's computer, and he is apparently downloading everything. And this is why it's a conspiracy. It was all planted. This was not Josh who did this, and they're going to get the truth out. That's the assumption that was made. I asked the person, was Jim Bob saying this in the context of that he believes that Josh is innocent of this, and does he truly believe that Josh is going to get out of this? And they said yes. Jim Bob truly believes that Josh is innocent, and Jim Bob truly believes that Josh will get out of this. They believe Josh's tall tale that a former ex-con downloaded the content and placed it on Josh's computer. Now, this doesn't hold weight to what was told in the bond hearing, because the Gerald Faulkner, the HSI investigator, said that a forensic evaluation of his computer showed that Josh Duggar had not only downloaded content onto his computer, it was an IP address that was listed in Josh's name, the password to a Linux partition that had been added onto his computer, which was where all of the downloaded content was found. That had the same password as Josh's passwords for his family Facebook account and Instagram account. There was photo evidence that was taken by Josh's phone that put him in the building when this stuff was happening. So apparently he's sitting at his desk and he is snapping a photo of his desktop, maybe by accident, and then at the same time, he's downloading content at the computer. And the computer shows that it happened at the same time. Timestamps apparently don't lie. There's also this idea that this building that they had was very, very small. It was like a trailer, like a tiny trailer, not big at all. And there wouldn't have been a lot of room for Josh to be able to be in a room with someone, taking a picture of his desk with somebody else using his computer. It just doesn't make sense. Not only that, the Linux partition has the same password as it. Not to mention that HSI says that while he's downloading content on the dark web, he flips back over to the HP side and writes a review for a contractor that did work for him, and they confirmed with the contractor that he had asked Josh Duggar to write a review for him. So the review was made, a login was placed with Josh Duggar's login, and then he wrote the review and then went back to the dark web. So there's some things here that just don't hold weight. When you actually go into the search warrant, learn that Josh was using a peer-to-peer program called BitTorrent, and he was using something called uTorrent software. So the federal government basically explains that there's this algorithm and it applies hashes to different documents or videos or files that are on the BitTorrent network. And these hashes are placed through an algorithm, and then there's different ways that they can track the hashes that have been placed or the markers that have been placed on these files to locate people that either have these files available for sharing on the network or to find people that have recently downloaded this content on the network. And by using these known hashes, they can find people in their area that might have been effectively downloading the contraband, which is the CSAM. But because of the way the file system sharing works, there's also ways within the capabilities of this program where they can find client IP addresses as well as information about the source of the file and where it comes from, or the source of where somebody is sitting through their IP address. So what they've done is when they're doing and conducting their searches, they're going onto a server that's effectively a public server. And when they download this peer-to-peer network, they are basically saying, like, when you use this software to download files, in turn, it enables other users to download pieces of those files from you, maximizing download speeds for all users. In uTorrent, only files that you explicitly download or are sharing will be made available to others. You consent to other users' use of your network connection to download portions of such files from you. At any time, you may uninstall the uTorrent through the add remove program's control panel utility. So when you're on this network, like Josh was, he consented to anyone else that was on his network to download from him, making what the police were doing or the investigators were doing completely legal, because he was on effectively a public network, downloading content on that network, his IP address connected to that network, and that's how they found him. So knowing that he's on a public network, knowing that the content on that network, that because of the way that the algorithm exists on that network, that there's hashes on some of these files, that's how they found what he was doing. So the investigator in May of 2019, she was running an undercover operation, and she went into the BitTorrent peer-to-peer file sharing network for offenders that were sharing CP. During the course of the investigation, connection was made between their computer and a computer device running BitTorrent software from the IP address that Josh owned. In May of 2019, 2 separate downloaded files were successfully obtained from Josh Duggar's IP address. One of the files was a zip that contained 65 images, and the other was a single video. HSI ICAC task force affiliates then viewed portions of the downloaded files, which were determined to be consistent with CP. So it says that the device at this address was the only IP address which shared the contents for the files downloaded. And as such, the files were downloaded directly from this IP. So in this network, those files that Josh's computer shared with this other user were only on Josh's IP, nobody else. So there would have been no other way for them to have obtained this content. The HSI task force affiliate then determined the IP was geolocated to Northwest Arkansas, at which time the lead information was then sent to Fayetteville to HSI. So in October, basically what happens is they review all of the downloaded content that was on his computer that they downloaded from his IP address. And there was a zip file called Marissa and a zip file called MOV0216. The contents on these were horrible, and I'll just say that it involved girls between the ages of 7 to 9 years old. Then on October 15th, what they did was they conducted an additional IP address check. And the search revealed that on May 16th, 2019, 93 files of investigative interest had been flagged as potential child exploitation material. So they download the stuff from them, but then they do another tool where they analyze his IP, and they say that they're able to track at least 93 more items on top of what they had already downloaded. So when they did an internet search of the IP, they find out that it's owned by Ozarks Go. They contact Ozarks Go via a federal summons, and they ask for the dates and times of the videos and images of CP were successfully downloaded. So a federal summons was issued to Ozarks Go in reference to the IP address. For specific dates and times, the videos and images of CP were successfully downloaded from the user. Documents received on or about October 7th assigned the IP to Joshua Duggar, and the address was provided, which turned out to be an address that was adjacent to where he was located. There was an address and a P.O. box. And so they check the address, they go to the P.O. box, and it's in Tontitown, Arkansas. They did a separate summons to Ozark Electric Cooperative, and they also found out that Josh Duggar was assigned to the IP. And another address was given for that, a P.O. box. So they go and talk to the people over at the property of the original thing that they get. Those people tell them that that's not their name. They don't have Ozarks Go. They also learn that the next door neighbor's name is Josh Duggar at the car lot. They tell them that they had met him when they bought a car from him, and they go on to Google and they do some searching, and they find out that he is for sure next door, and his car lot had been in some trouble with some permits. They have to actually go to the premise to make sure that there's actually so they get the wrong address, then they go to the actual address once they figure out where it is for Josh. Ozarks Go relays to them like, hey, yep, we might have had the wrong area. We're sorry. Yes, and the subdividing was wrong. They basically go to verify through the Washington County's Division of Inspections that, yes, Josh Duggar owns a car lot over there. He went through an inspection at that car lot. Then they take undercover investigators. They go into the car lot, who then note that there's someone named Randy there, there's someone named Josh there, and there's computers there, a phone and a laptop. So based on they finally found Josh, based on the fact that there's computers there, there's a laptop there, and there's a phone there, they have probable cause to believe that the IP which was downloading the content was coming from that location and would be found on that computer. And that's what they found when they actually got into the computer. So, conclusion, HSI did a lot of investigating to make sure that this was connected to Josh, including looking at passwords and timestamps on his iPhone. That being said, the idea that Mr. Duggar, Jim Bob, let's just say, would tell people then that someone else that Josh hired was using the BitTorrent network, which, by the way, not everyone's going to know how to use, while Josh is legitimately standing in the same area as the computer, you would just have to be it's just not plausible. You're telling me in a box the size of a, 5, 6, 9 by 9, a room, that somebody could be downloading this kind of content and you'd have no idea what it was? With your phone taking pictures of your desk while it's happening? All right, Josh, nice try. But denial is not something that is uncommon with the Duggars. This is the same man, Jim Bob, who minimized what his son did to his daughters and convinced his daughters to forgive their brother. So I am not surprised by any of this. What has infuriated people around the Duggars is that they're not being truthful about what has happened. And because Josh is adamant that he didn't do this, and it's a big setup, the question remains, who is the ex-con that he hired? Who's the person that planted it on his computer? And why hasn't this name been brought up yet? We haven't heard it yet. Hasn't shown up in any court documents. There was no reference of this person at the bond hearing. Nothing. At the bond hearing, they were going to talk about maybe the legality of the search, but the search warrant shows you that he was participating on a public torrent network. He knew people were going to be there because he was sharing files peer-to-peer. It's actually his fault that he was on this network knowing that it could be anyone he was sharing it with, not verifying IDs, participating in this, thinking that maybe there was going to be no way he could get caught. But at the end of the day, he didn't mask his IP because they got his IP. He wasn't using a VPN. So someone who claims to have a lot of technological experience didn't take a lot of steps to hide their identity on the BitTorrent network, which begs the question, Josh spent more time trying to hide his crimes from Anna than he did from the government, which again makes me believe that Josh never thought he was going to get caught. Josh thinks and exists in a world where he believes he knows better than everyone else, and he has a father that enables those delusions, allegedly. So what are your thoughts about this? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.